is incredible. Like just to have a brand as you. It's what Ryan did. Ryan has, silver hair, and he had it at 25. Yeah. So I think it's so.
Well, this
so
brand, it's just, and now I have a clothing line. So this African designer. So
Can I buy?
What?
Can I buy it?
We're just coming out. This is the first one he made.
Can I feel?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's spectacular, isn't it? Yeah. It's so nice.
This is so good.
He has.
This is amazing.
It's amazing.
Can I actually?
Material. Yeah. I'll get you one.
I'll buy it. Like, let me support the profit margin.
So this guy's name is Albert Lukonga. He has it's called Albert Couture. He's from the Congo, and he's launching a massive jewelry line as well.
That's another thing, and I don't know if you're rolling. I think that it's so interesting that I feel like people are afraid to venture outside, and the fact that you found someone who was so amazing at this craft. Like I've never, and I'm in fashion, obviously.
You're huge.
Like this is something that looks comfortable and functional and professional, but also comfortable.
Yeah.
But I think that it's so interesting that you you found someone who was good at something, and then you literally made it your own.
He had this dream of wanting to dress Wall Street like the old days.
Yeah.
Because even the floor used to have different outfits for different jobs, and then there was all of this sort of Wall Street was that super elegant pinstripe thing, just like real estate. Everybody had their thing. So my whole look, I used to wear suits, Hermes ties, Gucci shoes for 40 years. And then when I got sick with COVID and I was in a brace, I stopped and I went to Twillery pants and Lacoste jackets, right? So he came along. Why?
Why Lacoste jackets?
It was a look I liked. It was it was a full zip thing. It was like this, and this is his design of it. Right, it was just comfortable for me. I wasn't wearing suits anymore, even though I was supposed to wear suits. So he came to me and he goes, I've been watching you and I see this new look you've got, and I'd like to make, I don't want to change you. I just want to take what you've been wearing. So it's literally, he's going to, these are still the old pants, but he just made the jacket and he made a pinstripe suit. And so he just wants to redress Wall Street, which is sort of a fun.
I feel like that's interesting. No, that's so good. Because it's like, I feel like you found something in the market and you're like, oh, well, let me redo this and let me make it my own. And
it's a little retro. So it's kind of funny too. So this guy, Dan Ives, right? He's literally the #1 tech analyst in the world. He's a funny little, that we kind of met because he's an odd little guy like me, odd little Jewish guy, and he wears these bizarre, and he wears crazy Nike sneakers and these wild, he was named the best dressed man on Wall Street by the New York Post. Then he ended up getting approached by some guy, and they came out with a line. It's this tie-dye thing for a guy who was on Wall Street to wear these outfits. So he and I just sort of realized that we have the same sort of way of talking about business. So we started this YouTube channel. So amazingly enough, you know who Erin Burnett is on CNN?
Yeah.
She used to work here. She's the one who nicknamed me Einstein 20 years ago. On February 19th, when the market started to crash, she called me and said, would you come on the show? She has a show called Out Front at 7 o'clock on CNN every night. It's not very financy, but her background is all finance.
Yeah.
She said, nobody knows why the market's crashing here. Would you come on and talk? I showed up, and Dan Ives, who I already was a partner with on YouTube, was in the studio.
Okay.
And they put us on together not knowing that we already had a thing going. The show did so well, they kept us on for 4.5 months. I've been on CNN every night for the last 4.5 months.
Why do you think it did well?
Because he and I have this way of making it accessible to people. We're not
making information
and Wall Street, accessible and fun. Right? I mean, that was what it was. It literally got rated. She got the highest rated finance show in history. Her ratings went through the moon. They kept us on every night for 4.5 months. It was that crazy.
Why do you think that is? I mean, why do you think, as someone who's you are in it, I feel like you are Wall Street, right? Why do you think that is, that it feels so inaccessible for people who focused on it, and then people who people who don't think about it and who are intimidated? Why do you think that is?
Look, there is a whole new tranche. First of all, there's 50 million new retail traders who came in when all the barriers to entry came down during COVID with all these free trading apps, Robinhood and all this. So that's a whole new generation of people who are interested in the market. Then everybody else who used to have an account with Merrill Lynch or something, now is very interested in their money because the markets are so high and they're robust. So CNN audience is not necessarily your CNBC audience. So, but they love, they're hungry to understand what's going on Wall Street. And the Wall Street guys who are on CNBC are not that, they don't make it accessible to like your general, you know, obviously a six-figure earner plus bright person who's not like a big Wall Street person. So they just like ate up our shtick. It was really kind of, we have this really fun banter together.
Yeah, I love that you were able to like sort of bridge the gaps. I feel like one of the most interesting things that I see is it's like consumerism, right? Like women, I would say, you know, we love shopping, we love fashion, we love things that are just to buy.
Right.
But then we're not the ones creating companies. I work with a lot of retailers, commercial real estate people who like own companies, and whenever I'm working with them, sometimes I'm you know, I meet a guy and I'm like, okay, great, so you know, what do you do, what can I help you with? He's like, I own a blow dry bar. And I'm like,
right.
Wait, so you have never gotten a blow dry in your life,
right?
You don't even have like enough to, and I'm like, how did you get into this? And it was interesting because he explained, he was like, well, he's like, he saw the business, saw the profit margin, saw more like the analytics of it,
yeah.
that there wasn't a market for it. And then he opened it up and I was like, that is brilliant. But also there's like this gap of like, how do you understand what people need? And I think that it was really interesting that you saw what was needed and you're like, let me go into it, versus somebody who starts a company, a blow dry bar, and it's like there's certain small things that it's like, as a woman, you know, when I'm getting my hair blow dried, small things like if you have, I don't know, sweets in the beginning, or if you offer me a coffee,
right.
or if you have
I saw
like
you
chatter.
you do that on your videos where you're sitting there talking over a cinnamon bun talking about real estate, right? People like
love
it.
it.
Makes you accessible.
Yeah,
that's the whole thing.
thank you.
I never thought I had anything to say. That's why I never did. You know, I used to be the face of Wall Street, but I didn't actually
think you
talk.
are the face.
Right, I am. But for a while I was just the face.
Yeah.
And then I started to talk and say things and write stuff and realize that people. They loved what I had to say because it was not the normal crusty shit that is,
Yeah.
you know, they're used to.
You're great at speaking in words that I think everyone can understand.
Exactly.
Versus
That's why this show speed thing was so crazy, because I got approached by like CAA maybe a year ago. They wanted to manage me, and I asked, well, why? And they said, there's nobody in your industry who's been around as long as you who can talk to the 18-year-old, the 30-year-old, the 60-year-old, and anybody, and make it fun and accessible. So that's kind of where it's at. So that when this came along, it was just like a 20-year-old kid who's like the most powerful streamer in the world is being welcomed to Wall Street by the Einstein of Wall. It was like, that's why it went so crazy viral. It was crazy. It was amazing.
that is insane.
Yeah.
That is incredible. I mean, would you, I talked to you and I feel like even the 15 minutes that sometimes we've spoken,
Yeah.
just the wealth of information and the fact, like the cool things, like it's like Wall Street, again, there's this surface level of understanding what something is, just like a building, right?
Right.
Okay, it's a building, has 4 walls, people trade, people make money, fine. I think that's what people see.
Right.
But then
But
again,
what
in real
goes
estate,
on? What's on the inside?
I mean, the history of it. You telling me about just the people, like the fact that, you know, women couldn't trade, women couldn't be in the building,
Right.
And the protests that happened around it, and how now I'm here in a destry outfit.
But you do that. But you do that with real estate.
That's
Is there any
incredible.
other women like you who are doing commercial real estate? No.
I-
You broke ground on something, and it's funny because I guarantee you are inspiring other young women who have a similar excitement and interest in what you do to go do that. It's the same thing.
Thank you. No, I love it. It's funny. Whenever I spoke at a conference like 2 weeks or maybe a week ago, I was talking with someone and she reminded me, like almost of me, like a couple years ago. And she was kind of saying how she's always followed like the framework of different successful people in the industry, mostly guys, like who like very like cool, like an Alex Hermosi or even like Ryan Serhant.
Yeah.
And she's kind of frustrated 'cause she's like, it wasn't like working, you know,
Right.
stuff. And I told her, I was like, as a young woman, you kind of have to do things in a different playbook.
Yeah.
It's like certain things are easier, but certain things are harder. It's like to get in certain rooms, it may be easier and more accessible, but to be respected is more difficult. So doubling down on the information that you have, and then using things like, you don't have to shrink yourself to fit in a box because I think everyone's doing that and everyone's telling everyone to do that.
Yeah, which
But
is so wrong.
I think
It's first of
wrong.
all, everybody tells everyone you have to have all your ducks in a row before you do something, which is so wrong.
Yeah.
Get on the journey
Yeah.
and just let it happen along the way. And then it's like that old Mark Cuban thing. You only have to be right once. You only have to
Yes.
get one yes. You can go through 90 doors. I mean, you talk to Jack Ma, CEO of Alibaba, who was turned down for a $5,000 loan 25 times. No one would give him the time of day, and now he's worth like $500 billion. So all you need is one yes, right? And people don't understand that. So they just keep, it's that old line, it's not a matter of how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get back up. And, and I always say that to people. Don't think there's any door that you can't, what's the worst that's going to happen? They'll say no. Right, and then you move on, and then take what you got from that experience and go to the next one.
Yeah,
right?
There's a really interesting quote. Ryan said it the other day, and I've been like saying it over and over. Winners fail more than losers fail, and I was like, that's interesting because it's like when you try and try, and it's almost like you have to like try to understand what not to do, but then it's almost like. I always give like cool analogies, right? It's like throwing paint at a wall to like find a dart, and it's like you have to keep on doing it, and then once you find the dart, versus someone who does it and then they give up and they're like, I forget it. I think that there's like a repetition thing where one you become, it's harder to get hurt. I think that everyone, it's like they'll do something and they feel so hurt by it and they give up and they feel
take
down.
it so personally.
And I think that like, I don't think that helps us. I think whenever you focus on like that failure and you're like, I'm just gonna give up, societally, it hurts us because I do think that there's a thing about taking what the last, 3 generations have done, seeing what's worked, and now with the rise of AI and tech and all these like interesting things that we've only, been able to understand in the last 3-4 years.
Yeah.
I think it's almost like a responsibility to try and fail to merge the worlds to help, I don't know, whether it's real estate or stocks or whatever it is, things that have been done traditionally. Use AI. How do we optimize it? How do we make it better, faster, stronger? Because if not, it gets left behind, and who's going to do it?
Right.
If
Well,
not us.
I thought so. When first of all, I always say this: you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. Right. And that's the same thing. A winner loses more than a whatever we used to. Right. But what was the other thing?
Yeah. No,
I thought AI was going to, in the beginning, I didn't understand it. It was like I didn't understand crypto for a while, right? And then I resisted it, and then I felt like I'd missed the boat. And then once I understood it, you keep moving into it. So with AI, I kind of thought it was like an outsource young people, there wouldn't be jobs and all this. It turns out if you flip the head on that, it's going to make our lives. So you have to pivot. You have to, right? You don't go down the same journey. We're going to have to use it. Our lives are going to be benefited so much more with AI than not. And everyone's immediate fear was that everything's going to be done by AI and a machine learning and all that, and people won't be necessary anymore, which is not the case, right? I mean, think about it, like the medical industry is going to benefit from AI in the hugest way possible, right? When somebody's going to cut you open, God forbid you have something wrong, you want them to have had access to information on every time anyone's ever seen this procedure, let's say, before. The last thing you want to hear a doctor say is, well, I've never seen this before. Like, that's the worst thing.
That would be so bad.
Anyway, let's pivot, go in. We've been rolling this whole time. Amazing. So anyway, you know what? Look up in the sky. It's a bird, it's a plane. No, it's Jade Shenker, right? Absolutely spectacular young lady, breaking ceilings all over the place. I'm so excited to have her here. We were going to talk about how her job, she is the most sought after commercial real estate person in the freaking world. I'm going out on that one, okay? And that's just part of it. But her personality, her strive, her oh my God, she's just everything about her resilience, right? I mean, she's got a story, which we're not going to go into right now. We actually told it once before. Go check that out, because it is a story of spiritual resilience and emotional resilience, and how we just kind of get back up after we get knocked down and keep moving. But we're like in the midst of this wild time on Wall Street where we are just in the beginning of an interest rate cutting cycle. Now, we're not going to be able to explain the whole story to you about where we're at and how all this stuff started back in COVID when we had a crash of the market and we had to print $3 trillion to get the whole global economy going again. And then we had to raise interest rates to take money out of the supply of the system. And then we had to start cutting it because inflation was, it's a long, super complicated, crazy story. However, she is a real estate magnate, and I'm a Wall Street guy, and we are now about to embark on a cutting interest rate cycle, which historically has a positive effect on the stock market, okay? But when interest rates are higher for longer, it has a huge impact on real estate, on housing. That's why I thought, and you know what, she has a spectacular social media platform, but the amazing thing about Jade is that every once in a while she'll throw out these wonderful little tidbits about markets. So she's obviously loves markets and she's intrigued and excited by that. So I thought together we could sort of look into her world, my world, and let them know. Welcome. Hi.
I love it. I mean, okay, let me just tell you, every time I come here, every time I see you, it's just like a surge of energy. And being here, I mean, just the fact that billions and billions of dollars are traded right there is
right
wild. And the fact that only like a couple of decades ago, women weren't even allowed here. And the fact that, Peter, you're inviting me here, I just feel so grateful and privileged. And I mean, I think for every young, even older woman or man who feels like that Wall Street is inaccessible, I think that
no longer,
and it's about understanding and breaking down complex topics to be like, oh, okay, I can ask questions, I can understand, and you know what, maybe I can invest and put money because I do understand what's going on in the economy, and that's really my goal.
And you do, and it's funny because you know what, there's a lady named Alison Kosek. She was a CNN anchor for a long time. She just left that. She wrote a book about, she was a woman who was a financial reporter.
Yeah.
She was married with children. All of the finances, even though she spoke about finance every day in her life as her work, her husband was the one who took care of all the finances, was involved. She ended up getting divorced, and she suddenly found herself, even though she was in this industry, completely detached from her relationship to money, understanding money, where she stood in the whole thing, and she wrote a book about it, and women and money and understanding money. This industry is absolutely exploding with women. Back in the old days, there were no women on the floor of the stock exchange for sure. The only time, there were a couple of times in history, there were no women in running hedge funds. Now there are, right? So that's a whole nother story. Let's just dip into this for a minute because I never use notes, but it's super exciting. Because Jade, I just want to let's look down at our feet and realize where we are in the market for a second and go over this, because I think we could really have an ongoing fun weekly or a couple times a month story about how you see real estate and how what's happening here in the market is impacting it. Because I realized recently too that the real estate and the housing market is so pervasive as far as the whole economy goes.
Yeah.
It's a gauge on how the economy's doing. It employs millions of people, right? So with higher interest rates for as long as they've been high, part of that housing market in real estate has been frozen, and you can probably address that. However, we are now in this interest rate cutting cycle. We just started, right? Last year, we waited all the way to September, and we finally got a 50 basis point cut, and the market did not respond to it well because they thought that the economy was doing worse than it was. And anyway, we once again waited all this time in 2025 in a market that has seen every possible thing happen. We've had high, low lows, a mini crash during February, March, and April due to the tariffs and all that. But with interest rates still being high, we got inflation from 8.5 to 2.5.
Yeah.
Amazing. Interest rates are still high, and they've been high for a while. And that impacts your industry. It impacts the housing industry. We are now just starting, as of last week, in an interest rate cutting cycle. Historically, when you do that, over the next 12 months, 100 years going back, the market a year later is up 16%. Okay, so we're about to embark on that. But by cutting interest rates, you are unleashing your industry to a big...
Yeah, I agree. I think if we zoom out and we look at COVID, right, there's always like a shock system. And when there's a shock system of something like COVID, you know, I think the economy, they're like, okay, well, we have to lower interest rates to to stimulate it again. And when you lower it too much, you know, you had all these people buying, and it was amazing. It was like a fire, like it was incredible.
It was a fire sale.
And all these people entering the market, being able to buy first homes, you know, buying a lot of stuff, taking a lot of like credit card debt. What happened was as the government tried to stabilize the economy, everyone's like, oh my gosh, wow, like interest rates are so high, I can't afford things. And because of that, more institutional companies came in, people who could, you know, who made money from the stock market or from their job, whatever it was, they came in and they were able to buy all cash, and they sort of took advantage of that. But what that did
in real estate.
In real estate,
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So a lot of like the private equity people, a lot of people in tech, venture capital, those did well because those weren't really affected by COVID that much. A lot of people did raises, and a lot of people made a lot of money.
Absolutely. Look, even through COVID, when we printed the $3 trillion, we know if you go back to financial crisis, we printed, to get out of that 07, 08 crash, we printed $800 billion and put it into the system over 18 months. It took 9 years to get back to even. COVID, we learned our lesson. We put $3 trillion into the market over 3 months. We were back to even by August. And 2020, we were up 20%. 2021, we were up 24%. So, and some people say, oh, you're just printing money and it's inflationary. Yes, but I'm a firm believer. If we didn't, that was one of the most, whether it was real or not, and all the other, it's all horseshit, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, if we did not print the money we did and backstop the economy and the corporations and everything, by that $3 trillion, we would have all been on breadlines. So all that being said, and I'm a fan of Jay Powell because he's navigated us through this. And think about it, with all that we've gone through for the last 5 years, we are still trading at record highs.
Thank
with
goodness.
All that. Is that crazy?
Every time I see this, like I'm like, the fact that everything's been like somewhat stable is incredible given, I mean, you know,
all the dynamic, the mechanism, economic mechanism, and your industry is a big part of that. You know, just recently I realized that once you, if housing, and housing is different than real estate, but they're obviously related in a big way. But if housing is sort of frozen, that industry of building houses, new homes being built, people reselling homes and whatnot, if that's frozen due to higher interest rates, that will affect the builders, the people who are growing the trees, to get the lumber, to do the electricians, all of it is a massive employment surge when that's unfrozen. And I think that's what we're about to see. It's one of the reasons why the market is where it's trading.
Yeah, I mean, you'd find it so interesting. So I always like try to understand, and whenever a couple days ago, I think it was last week, they lowered interest rates by a quarter of a point. And I was like, okay, how do I understand that and articulate that to sort of everyone? And I was like, well, you know, for us, we look at the three factors: job reports, employment rate, and inflation. And then we try to understand, okay, well, I would assume, and I don't have a crystal ball, but we'll probably see maybe two more interest rate cuts by the end of the year, hopefully.
Yes, we will.
But what I find really interesting, and so I specialize in Manhattan, especially Lower Manhattan. That's my bread and butter. I love it.
Financial district.
Yes.
Yes.
Just next door. And what I've been seeing is a lot of venture capital firms, a lot of tech startups, a lot of AI, crypto, they're coming to New York. And whenever I look
at brick and mortar, are they starting to?
Just offices.
Right.
And I notice, and I like to do research on other markets as well. Syracuse, Micron just, I guess, proposed or got approved a $100 billion development for their chips, I believe. Okay, yeah. Bringing 50,000 jobs in the next 10 years to Syracuse. And I was like, it's interesting because I think though we're seeing a market shift as far as like consumerism and like office rates and all these things, I do think that it's almost like this beginning of what do the new players look like and who's coming in with a lot of the money. I always say too, commercial brokers are the people that shape New York City, the people who place
because they're renting out buildings. They're not or floors of buildings, and they're bringing a lot of employment. They're bringing a lot of consumerism to it. Like if you rent 4 floors of a building on Park Avenue because you have a startup and you're doing that, that's just not this one little entity. Yeah. It has tentacles that go out in a big way, influencing the community, influencing everything, influencing probably just even real estate and values in New York, right?
Well said.
For a while there, the occupancy down on FIDI after COVID was zero, probably. Those who had money and had foresight started to buy it up. But it's not till recently that people are comfortable enough to start investing in lower Manhattan, I'm sure, whether it's from buying real estate or renting real estate or bringing their companies to America. You know, one thing I have to admit, it's no shock to you that I'm not particularly a major Trumper, but the amount of, all this talk about like starting to build things in America. This morning there was tons of news that came out. So we're going to institute 100% tariffs on pharmaceuticals. You had it in one of your blurbs, and on upholstery and on imported cabinetry for new apartments and all this stuff, unless you have committed to taking your production facility and bringing it to America. So, you know what? It's a freaking genius idea. At the end, it's a little long term, but it's super smart. Like building these data centers, you're thinking, oh, it's going to be 5 years out. No, for a data center that's going to be done in 5 years, it's starting now. Yeah. And so we need to sort of think far out there and think long term. Wall Street is a forward-looking entity, and so you had these. I'm going to bring them up because you brought up such great point. Oh, so let's see where we are like at the moment here. Okay, so you've got market slumping 3 days in a row. It was a very shallow slump. Minimal. And the reason for that, I've gone over it every day for the last 2 months, is that there's a lot of money on the sidelines, under investment by the large funds who actually sold in February, March, and April when they should have been buying. So they now need to basically fill their books. They need to allocate cash. They cannot close out the third quarter without buying stuff, okay? So the president wants to do federal worker layoff. That's kind of a bizarre thing. 100% tariffs. This is brand new on drugs, okay? On upholstered furniture, on kitchen cabinets, on heavy trucks, on bathroom vanities. I mean, so specific, unless you commit to start producing your products in America. Long term, at the end of the day, we have lost so much manufacturing and production to other countries. It made sense because it was being done for a quarter or less of the price. But in order to rebuild this country as a manufacturing entity, as it should be, like that's what you need, a hub, that's what you need to do. But then we start talking about all the investment. We're talking AI, that's like the hottest thing in the world, and you mentioned it a bunch of times. Like you've got commitment by Meta, by Google, by Oracle, right? These companies, $600 billion, each one of them, into that area. Yeah. This is a revolution. So I'm trying to just, so how is this going to all impact your industry? Like, are you seeing a massive surge in commercial real estate and companies coming into New York?
I think that a lot of the older companies who were here, I think a lot of them moved out post-COVID. It was tough because you had a business, you had a business plan that was based off of what was before COVID, right? And you had after COVID, kind of like new business plans, and everything had to shift. So you have a lot of new players in the market, and I think that that's the most interesting. As far as what we're going to see probably in the next 5 years, 10 years, is there is a lot of tech companies, a lot of AI. I think e-commerce
new money, or startups.
A lot of new money. A lot of venture capital firms, people who are excited about.
Are they coming to New York?
Yeah.
So they used to go out to like San Francisco. Now they're coming to New York.
Everyone's coming to New York. Well, I think company culture is very important. I think that it's harder to retain the next generation to just like nobody wants to go into an office. It's annoying sometimes. Like you just have to be able to deal with what people want. I think it's becoming a people's market less than a company's market. And I mean, you probably see JP Morgan's new office. It's all about people working.
Like the biggest office building in the world. I mean, it's insane. It is $100 billion or way more than that, isn't it?
Yeah. Wild. And I think
that's a recommitment to the business model in a huge way.
Yeah. And even so when we model, let's say like Class A office buildings, we have one 5 East 59th Street. Whenever we originally modeled it, and when I've modeled it pre-COVID, it was about square feet, doing the kind of like the basic office. Okay. And now we've had to completely change those models. If we're investing in things, people want office tenants want amenities.
Yes.
They want.
It's a culture.
State-of-the-art finishes.
Yes.
And I think that we're seeing that change now, where the Class B, Class C, they're a little bit tougher to move.
Okay.
And it'll be interesting because I think that as AI, tech, VC, as more new money comes into New York, I do think that the fact that more manufacturing is also coming to
Hopefully,
America in
yes,
general,
yep.
I think that's going to bring a lot of jobs, and I think it's going to be
Jobs
a good
brings
way to
growth, brings
stimulate.
income, it stimulates everything down to like the bodega where the workers are going to be buying their sandwiches. I mean, that's the funny thing that I was like investigating real estate for a couple of days and realizing that once housing start to surge, that there's so many tranches of employment that impacts in a huge way. But you know what's interesting too is there's this that we need to create a culture of coming back to work. I know that a lot of people after COVID, look, I worked through all of it. As sick as I was, I need to go. Look, my productivity lying under the covers, thinking I'm getting shit done, right, is absolutely nil. A lot of people still have not come back to work. I don't get that, and we know that culture of like the Google office in San Francisco, or those places where there's like relaxation rooms and yoga and to make the work environment. I know we started with the WeWork thing. That's a whole nother thing. We're not going to talk about that destroyed the whole IPO market, but we're not going to go after Adam Weinberg or whatever his name was. But anyway, to create a workplace.
Doing a new development now too, right?
Well, we'll stay away from that. He's not my favorite guy. But to be able, as you just described, that in order to bring people here, you need to give them a reason to want to go back to work. And that's going to, and so while they may just have office spaces and cubicles, now it's going to be a different thing, whether it's going to be open offices and an environment where people are happy to come to work and all that. And I'm sure that impacts whether they have this much space or now they're going to need this much space. Is that what we're seeing?
Yeah, I think it's less about the square footage and more about like the finishes,
right,
the amenities, the whole like employee package. I think that people care about, before, at least for me too, and I'm sure you did too, the generation of like working hard, you have to hustle, you have to wake up early or stay up late, like it was very exciting. And I think, I grew up like aspiring like all these people. And I think that now the generation that came with COVID and understanding that you can kind of like lay in bed and get some work done.
Yeah.
But there's like a lax in the absorption of information of the people around you. Yeah. So I think that companies see that and like they want to be cool because if you're going to get top tier employees, you just need to have like the cool things. You need to have the relaxation, whatever.
You need your yoga room and you need your healthy food and you need all of those things to make it attractive to come back to work. It's been 5 years since COVID. For top tier employees. Correct. Well, but that's the bottom line. You want that in order to create that. It's I'm blocking on the word. You're talking. It's a culture, right? It's a happy work culture, right, where people are more productive. And I mean, I didn't even think that's what we'd be talking about, but that's a huge thing. Yeah. When you see that, I don't remember what movie it was where you saw how it's so cool to like work at Google or work at Facebook because it's this environment. Like when we're all together and the ingenuity that I've seen. I do some startup conferences and stuff. It's incredible that all the different ideas that people are coming up with now, the ingenuity out there of the startups, it's crazy. Whether it's in wild tech, it's robotic, it's like, oh God, no, it's unbelievable. Like these exoskeleton suits where wild stuff. I mean, just like last week, Ryan, my boss, he rented out Harry Potter World. He rented out City Walk. Like, I don't even know how much money he spent on that, but that's all for company culture. Like, how do you maintain top agents? Right. How do you recruit even higher agents? And how do you keep a company happy and excited to be there? I think companies are a name, and that's so interesting to me. I mean, I think it'll be really. I'm curious to understand how that affects the job market in 5 years, and how just this resurgence of the new players affect commercial real estate in general. So far, I'm super bullish. I'm super excited about that. And the fact that, we are anticipating 2 more interest rate drops. Yes. So we will be down, right? We will. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but yes, hopefully another 75 basis points, right? I mean, last year we ended up with a 50 and 225s. That was helpful. That definitely jump-started a lot of things. And this market can handle that right now. Just to give a little more of an economic point, which you did mention, mentioned in your thing, but it took me a while to understand, is that the reason why Jay Powell held his ground and did not cut rates even though he was being pressured by the administration was that when you have high GDP and you're in a high growth environment, you can cut rates and it will pour gasoline on the fire to make the markets surge. However, if you're in a low or slow growth environment, which the tariff situation created,
oh my gosh,
you end up with stagflation, which is low employment, high inflation, and an economy that doesn't know how to navigate its way out of that. There's no quick fix for stagflation. So that's why he said, I will wait, and he did wait. He did not kowtow to the president. He waited until the economic data was appropriate for him to pivot at Jackson Hole and say, you know what, we've got unemployment going from 4.1 to 4.3, GDP is doing what it's doing, job creation or payroll growth or jobless claims are at highs and lows. And today PCE came out, right, where the personal consumer expenditure, the tariffs are starting to impact the individual and the companies and all that. We're starting to see the effects of tariffs. That's the fear. So it's appropriate to start cutting now. It wasn't before, but it's going to create, historically, if you can look at any kind of an older model, once you start these cuts, it's going to jumpstart everything. And your industry, my industry, which is a huge thing.
Yeah, and I think the slow and steady is better because then it gives us time to prepare. It's like, again, I'm just a 29-year-old understanding things. Like, I understand real estate, but the markets, I mean, I appreciate every time I stand with you and I'm with you, I understand and I learn so much more. And I think for just everyone, it's like, okay, you understand that we're going to have likely 2 more interest rate drops. What do you do with that?
Right.
If you have some money, it's like, okay, well, where can I invest it? Where, is there a certain property that I've seen that I want to understand? Do I invest in? And I think it's healthy to understand the market in general and really just prepare yourself for where you want to invest your money.
So I'm going to say this last thing because we're going to do this more because we haven't even touched on it. But the mindset about creating a portfolio. We are the greatest consumer generation of all time. We love to buy stuff, right? We're sitting there, we buy stuff and then we ask Instagram to send it to us. We pay more for the delivery yesterday for the stuff than we paid for the stuff we've got. So my whole shtick when I spoke to this guy, I Show Speed, was to invest in stocks and not stuff. Right? We love to buy stuff, and most of the stuff we buy, the minute we buy them, go down in value. So I want younger people to have a new mindset that put money aside every week. Don't just buy something for the sake of buying something. The idea came from this guy Fabian, who was a market maker on the floor, and he always used to say, so if you were to your iPhone 14 is not broken, but the iPhone 15 comes out, it costs $1,000. You have to have it because you have to have it. Yeah. But if you, instead of doing that, went out and bought 5 shares of Apple stock, and you've been doing this since the iPhone 1, I believe you would have something of way more value than you do with 16 old phones that are sitting in your drawer. And it's the same mentality of invest. People think that it's either get rich quick or nothing. But there's a number that's thrown out there that if an 18-year-old puts $250 into the S&P 500, disclaimer, I'm not an advisor, I'm not telling you what to do, but $250 into the S&P every month from the age of 18 to 60, you will have more than $1.2 million of passive income. Now, the 60-year-old part of it's not that sexy. The $1.2 million is very sexy. And so if you think of it, it's called dollar cost averaging. But at the end of the day, we kind of think it's either all or nothing, but it's not. Putting a little bit aside. It's like how did our parents and grandparents used to do it? They used to put pennies in a jar, right? That was what they saved. Same thing now. Right? That's the mindset and mentality.
Yeah. I'm so curious to understand what people want to hear more of, but I do think that's the most interesting thing. It's like, how do you put aside the money? I know there's a lot of apps now. It's like every time I open up Instagram, it's another advertisement where they take, whether it's Acorns, whether, I don't know, a bunch of other apps.
Right, you can round up and go into the market. You can, any number of things. Anything that, if you think about it, I know for me, even though I make a good living, but if I have my money in my bank, I spend it. I'm a spender, right? And, the bottom line is if you were to have an urge to buy something and you stop for a moment and you maybe put that money into something that will grow in value, then as a 20-year-old, I wish I had done that as a 20-year-old. You're young enough to do that, right? To invest in things that are going to grow in value. And not, because literally most everything we buy goes down in value the minute we do.
I mean, I'm telling you, the second I see an advertisement for a new pair of shoes, normally my credit card's there, but I agree. You know, what I used to do is every time I got paid, I automatically, I didn't even think about it, Chase just sent it to my investment account. Chase sends it, Chase sends it, Chase sends it now. You know, I have a financial advisor team. They give me advice. I'm like, okay. I'm like, and it's almost hard. It's like when I give X amount of money to whatever versus the instant gratification. But I think changing the brain, because we have so much instant gratification.
Yes. Look, we are the ultimate instant gratification generation. But the bottom line is, if you just, an urge lasts 20 minutes. If you need to walk around the block and have a piece of chocolate.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
An urge lasts 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Yeah, and if you walk around the block and have a piece of chocolate, chances are you're not going to have that same urge. So the next time you want to spend a bunch of money you don't have on something, walk around the block, have a piece of chocolate, and then reconsider it.
I will.
And as far as these apps we're talking about,
that.
there are so many opportunities. Look, I run with my partner David Green, we have a trading school. We now just partnered with this company called Apex Trader Funding. The accessibility for anybody who wants to trade the stock market now can open up an account for $28 on Apex and learn and be able to trade the stock market. All the barriers to entry are down. The SEC yesterday approved a new law, right? Up until yesterday, you have to have $25,000 in your account to not be flagged by pattern day trading regulation.
Wow.
So if you wanted to be a day trader, you have to have a minimum of $25,000 in your account if you want to day trade, right? That means a couple, 3, 4 trades a day. Otherwise, you could only do one trade every 3 or 4 days. They just changed that. So they're making this, it's like you're all being invited to this party that you were never invited to. This is like the ultimate Studio 54 red rope, nobody's welcome. Now everybody's welcome. So that's why I do what I do. It's because I want, now, we don't want people to think it's a get-rich-quick scheme. We want them to educate themselves on, now that you're invited to the party, you need to know the rules, right? And look, there are copycat apps. You can put your $50 out of your paycheck into an account and copy some guy who's already making 12% and absolutely do nothing else. Or you could learn, you know, the old thing, if you're hungry, I can give you a fish, or I can teach you how to fish. So same thing. So, you know, educating yourself, motivating yourself, it's all fun. We got so much stuff to talk about, you and me. We could be doing this forever.
I know.
We're going to do this regularly.
I would just say, if you are someone who's watching this now, Apex is something you guys can just click the link, purchase it, start learning. I would say just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it. If you have the urge, if you're watching this, if you're spending the time to learn, sometimes you just need to execute. You need to execute. You need to start actually understanding how to invest and just do that. That's advice that I think I wish I had.
You know, isn't there a company that has that as their slogan? Just do it. Ah, yes.
Oh, wait,
I don't know. Maybe they make sneakers or something. Anyway, we're going to do this again. We're going to put this out on Trade Like Einstein, Einstein and Eyes. We're going to put it everywhere and repurpose this so it gets out to a bigger audience. But I really want to get to people who have any interest in real estate, any interest in economics, any interest in trading, any interest in two human beings who are just kind of breaking it down in a way that it makes sense and it's fun, accessible, affordable, and fun. That's my MO, right?
Yeah.
So I think you and I can do that better than anybody.
All right, let's do it.
Boom.
Until next time.
Until next time, that's all I got to say about that.